Hello, I'm Park Soon, your psychological mentor. You've probably heard this a lot, right? If you imagine it, it becomes reality. If you imagine it, it becomes reality. So people often ask kids this question, right? If you imagine it, does it turn into wealth? And the kids say no. That's what they say. So it's a bit odd to say that people who are struggling right now are just imagining things. For some people, what they imagine becomes reality, but for others, even if they imagine it, it doesn't become reality. Why is that? Personally, I've changed a lot of things just as I imagined them. For example, I imagined classes that didn't even exist and acted according to my imagination. Since my 20s, I've earned hundreds of millions, paid off my father's debts, and achieved many things just as I had imagined. And in the future, I will accomplish many more things just as I imagined them. But why is it that for others, things don't turn out the way they imagine? There are several reasons for that. First of all, even if someone imagines things, if they lack basic knowledge, it's like their imagination has no source of energy. In other words, to develop an impressive and logical imagination, you need a foundation that allows that imagination to be realized properly. If you have a setup where you can explain things at any time, then when you imagine something in that state, your imagination can unfold with a natural logic, flowing smoothly and logically. But if you lack fundamental knowledge of the truth, any imagination you have will just be a delusion. And since people usually realize that it's just a delusion, they don't act on it. And then, why doesn't it work even when I imagine it? First of all, it's because there's no earnestness. The phrase, if I imagine it, it becomes reality, is not a perfect statement. You have to imagine it with true earnestness. Most people can't even explain what earnestness really is. I was extremely earnest, and even now, I live with that sense of earnestness. But in the past, my earnestness was mostly about paying off my father's debts, whereas now, I have a much higher level of earnestness. But the thing is, because people lack that earnestness, when you imagine something with true earnestness, what happens is that you keep imagining it over and over again, endlessly. When you imagine something earnestly and endlessly, then you start to imagine it vividly. But even if you imagine something earnestly, endlessly, and vividly, that doesn't mean it will become reality. In fact, if you just keep imagining things earnestly, endlessly, and vividly, you might just end up as an earnest daydreamer. But what comes next, or rather what's missing here, is that if I imagine something earnestly, endlessly, and vividly, I need to find the person who already has what I want, or the person who can grant what I ask for. Yet, if I can reach that person and influence their unconscious, meaning if I can control their imagination, that's what I call hypnotizing others. Once you achieve this state of hypnotizing others, then all the external conditions completely change. What I imagine becomes reality. Let me summarize that perfect sentence once more. If I continuously and vividly, with this sentence, what I imagine becomes reality, if I can perfectly and properly construct this sentence, then if I earnestly, persistently, and vividly imagine it, I will go around seeking out powerful people, and their hearts will change, and from the perspective of others, all the conditions will completely change. Just like me, from my 20s, I was able to buy my father 2 cars right away, pay off his debts, and change everything in this way. You know what I mean, right? Everyone. It's not that books like The Secret or The Dream Loft are bad, but if my attitude is sending things to the universe, it becomes vague, like hoping to find a bag with 10 billion won on the street. If I send that wish out to the universe, will the universe make it happen? Of course not. So, there are some books out there that nurture daydreamers. That may not be the intention, but readers who lack knowledge can fall into misconceptions after reading them. Sometimes, people comment on my videos saying it's exactly the same as The Secret, but it's not. There might be some similarities, but I'll talk about things that are much more specific and fundamental. You'll understand once you see for yourself. So, I just have to imagine. Don't just stop there. Study other people, especially those in positions of power, and develop techniques and knowledge that can influence their thinking. Only then will you be able to change external circumstances. Don't put blind faith in things like The Secret or The Dream Loft. Instead, focus on how to train your own subconscious and how to approach the subconscious of others. You need to make those kinds of different efforts. I hope that everything you imagine will soon become a reality. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. I'll see you again next time with even better videos. Stay strong, everyone.